models value good science, or do they value elite status? What will the future of scientific communication look like? More importantly, where and how will you communicate your work? And how do you want your impact to be measured? So I leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore, in her discussion, brought up some aspects that you could discuss over lunch with her. But for all other questions, there's always Twitter. That actually sounds like a really nice slogan. But nevertheless, go on Twitter, hashtag NTUWOW, and post your questions there, live feed, retweet, so many things that you can do. Or alternatively, if you have other questions that you want to write down immediately, if you're a little bit old-fashioned, old school, you need to put pen to paper. We do have the question cards as well. Do write down your question and pass it to our ushers with the very nice black t-shirts on the sides. Thank you. To bring us to a very nice landing at World of Wisdom, wow, 2014, we have Associate Professor Kwok Kian Woon. He is from the Division of Sociology, College of Humanities, Arts and Social Science. His teaching and research interests relate to the historical and comparative understanding of modern social transformation and contemporary social change. Specific areas include the following: social and political theory, social memory, mental health and illness, and higher education in Southeast Asia. His research on patterns of mental illness in this country were reported in, among other co-authored articles, A Population-Based Survey on Mental Disorders in Singapore Annals, Academy of Medicine, Singapore, February 2012, which won the Best Publication Silver Award 2012. His co-edited book with Roxana Watterson, Contestations of Memory in Southeast Asia, is published by NUS Press 2011. His latest work includes interdisciplinary studies on psychological, health, and social factors related to working in underground spaces. Gives me great pleasure to invite our final speaker, Professor Kwok. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. So Lalit disobeyed me. I asked him not to read out the CV. So, good morning, everybody. Is it still morning? Sorry. Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you very much to the organizers. This is such a great forum. I wish that we do a lot more of this in NTU, maybe at least a few times a semester, if not a few more times a year. One of the donors, in fact, the main donor for this event was a professor in one of our engineering schools. His name is Dr. John Cheong. And I think it's great that his donation helped us think about doing something like this. Now, I'm going to say a few things to begin. I noticed that my two friends here ended up with quotations from Einstein. Right? So, let me ask, how many in this room have studied physics? Oh, many of you, yeah. So I won't confess that I failed my physics many years ago. Yeah. Now, how many of you who studied physics can say that you have a great love for physics? Oh, why so few? Okay, good. Now, I'm going to ask an unfair question. But before I do that, right, let me begin with a disclaimer, right? You know, NTU professors are so articulate, so well-informed, so persuasive. Please don't believe everything they say. Why? Because if anybody gives you the idea that he or she is 100% right, you have a lot to worry about, right? So I think we are coming here to say that maybe we are about 55% right, and we still want to talk to you, and we want you to ask questions and so on. So having said that, maybe it's hard to give answers which are 100% right. But let me be unfair and try to ask a question quite out of the blue, because we have Einstein, we have physics. Some of you have studied physics, some of you love to study physics, and so on. So this is the unfair question out of the blue. How many of you think that it was morally right for the decision to go ahead with the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Hands up. Okay. Very few, the minority. Maybe a couple of crazy people I know here. Sorry. They're good friends of mine. But I'm sure they have their reasons for saying so, right? Of course, in order to drop the atomic bomb, you need the atomic bomb. You need the physics behind the atomic bomb. So I'm just going to clear this very quickly. I'm not sure about this quotation, but it's found in the book. And apparently, the physicist Enrico Fermi, who was a Nobel Prize laureate, said something like this: "Don't bother me with your conscientious scruples. After all, the thing is superb physics." Now, this is something I will come to a bit later. Now, there was another physicist, you might know his name, Victor Weisskopf, right? And he, some decades later, he said the following. This is documented. "It is my judgment in these things that when you see something that is technically sweet, you go ahead and do it, and you argue what to do about it only after you have had your technical success. That is the way it was with the atomic bomb. I do not think anyone opposed making it. There were some debates about what to do with it after it was made." I'm a social scientist, I'm not a natural scientist, but those of us who love science, who pursue science, there are things that we have to think about. So this is what I'm going to lead on to. Very quick comments. Science is a fundamental aspect of human life from day zero, right? Just as you might even say that there are other fundamental aspects of human life, like, for example, religious life or social life, and so on. This sounds like a cliche. Science doesn't exist in a vacuum. If you go by what Diane has said, science today is so well organized. The university, as research-intensive universities, are socially organized. It is a whole global system of knowledge production, right? And of course, science, basic science, is behind technology, including the technology of making bombs, right? And of course, we have to think about what are the implications of such technology. And of course, we have a number of people from the humanities today. This kind of dialogue between science, engineering, science and technology, and the humanities and social sciences must happen more, and certainly must happen on NTU campus. This is why when I was asked to speak, not only because Vivek is so persuasive, he only twisted my arm a little, right? I agreed immediately. Now, there are some debates about the rise of science, and of course, there are historical studies of Chinese science. There's something about the Islamic world and its contributions to science. There's Indian science and Indian mathematics in particular. But according to this German sociologist, one of the founders of modern sociology, When we talk about modern science, we're talking about Western science. And there's a whole history of this, which I don't have to get to in today. But science is part of our modern fate. And it's part and parcel of our everyday lives, right? And science is not just science. It is a form of rationality which drives a lot of what's happening in the world today. What Weber called we're trying to master the world. Everything can become mathematicized into quantitative knowledge, right? And this kind of rationalization, Weber says, is a form of disenchantment, meaning to say that the mystery, the magic of the world that we live in is gone. Everything can be understood. Which leads me to the question of whether there's such a thing called scientism. Right? And there's a definition here that there are no limits to what can be achieved in the name of science. And if there are, right, science sets the boundaries for what we know, what we can achieve, and so on. Nothing outside of the domain of science which cannot be successfully applied. Now, I'm not sure whether in pursuing science, we are becoming more and more scientistic, right? And that we believe in scientism. I don't think so. All right? Just very quickly, because time is running out. Computer versus man. Sorry, man has no chance. Although men and women invented computers. Right? Those of you who are chess players, you know this. But what does Freeman Dyson say? Oh, really, it's such a tragedy. Right? The dominance of machines over human judgment. Right? And science has been responsible for the making of those machines. All the algorithms, all the computations that can go into this tragedy, according to Dyson. Now, I just try to think about information processing. Is the university a place for disseminating information, or is it something else? I'll just leave that for you to think about. And of course, issues about technology and ethics. You know, Dyson was based with many other scientists in Princeton at the Institute for Advanced Study, one of the best places to be based if you are a scientist, right? And here he is thinking, maybe every Mexican village should end up like Princeton. We are very far from that. But this is an ideal expressed by one scientist. Okay, I'm a social scientist, but even we social scientists, using so-called scientific methods, we have been criticized sometimes. Are you lending your social scientific skills and research for something called social engineering? Right? And in NTU, as somebody from humanities, every day I'm talking to engineers. I feel that I'm being turned to an engineer myself. Now, scientists and engineer, is there a mentality, and is it fair to talk about an engineering mentality? I don't know. Is it true that engineers and scientists think of the world, you can break up into components, the means and ends can be separated, you know, everything can be quantified, every problem can be solved. Let's not be emotionally involved, right? And let's maximize. Earlier on, there was a reference to utilitarianism. Maximum good for maximum numbers. But there must be some other kinds of issues that we think about. Can ends and means really be separated? There's a very famous kind of question, right? Does the end justify the means? This has been asked of something like communism. A wonderful new society, a new kind of human being. To get there, this wonderful end, what are the means that are employed? Does the end justify those kinds of means, and so on? And then Gandhi said, the means that you employ are what he calls ends in the making. The means carries certain kinds of moral connotations in the advancement of some kind of end, and so on. So, I'm glad that Teru mentioned good, moral good, epistemic good. I think those questions are very much those that I want to pursue and leave open for our discussion. Now, what about science as a vocation? Now, back to Max Weber. Those of us who are here at the university, whether it's the professors or the graduate students, it's great that we have many undergraduates. Do you think of yourself as not just graduating and getting a great job which pays you a high salary, has good working conditions, or do you think you are pursuing something more? In fact, something more than a career, an occupation, or a profession. Something that is called a vocation, a calling. And Max Weber was very much talking about this. And look at this quotation here. If you haven't experienced this personal experience in your research, in your pursuit for knowledge and for truth, you might not have quite gotten this feeling that you are not just working on science, but you are experiencing what it means to live out a scientific vocation. This passion, right, that Weber was talking about. And sometimes, you know, in the course of your writing your term papers or discussion or doing your PhD or us in our labs or in our writing, there's this aha moment. And we say, look, this moment will never come back again. You better get it done. You better write it out. All right? And that's part of that experience of science. And Weber is saying, if you haven't had this experience, don't do science. Right? So there's something about science, because one of my first questions, many of you have learned physics. How many of you love physics? How many of you love physics in a way that Fermi loved physics? Superb physics. Of course. How many of you love physics and also love other things? And maybe pursue other kinds of questions. So, what is Weber saying? You know, something which is so rational, science, needs to be driven by something which we could possibly think is irrational, a kind of passion. And what is the relationship between science and values? All right? And science cannot answer Tolstoy's question, how shall we live? Right? Who shall we serve? We want to serve this God or want to serve another God, and so on. Only some kind of prophet can answer such a question, according to Weber. Right? This is my last slide. Right? So we'll go slowly. Can you prove a value proposition scientifically? Can you say, in answer to Professor Teru, no, this kind of moral good is scientifically more worthwhile to pursue than that kind of epistemic good? How do you say it scientifically? Then what's the basis of making your decisions? And Weber was very strong. I cannot be using this stage to tell my students which political party to vote for. Why? Because if I'm the great teacher that I think I am, I will be doing the thinking for you, and my thinking may be wrong. Rather, the work of a teacher is to stimulate even further and more critical questioning. On the other hand, Weber was profoundly concerned with consequences. The scientists who were working on the bomb, on superb physics, they might have no idea. They might not even have intended. They would have not known the kinds of consequences of what they were doing. Right? But in what sense can we say that there needs to be an understanding of responsibility? And can one say, no, my work stops in the lab and I'm not responsible for everything that happens after? Right? So, my last question is this. Oh, I still have 44 seconds. If science cannot ultimately be the decisive factor as to which moral ideal that we strive towards to, nevertheless, can science provide the basis for us to think through consequences? Consequences which are practical in terms of the people affected, consequences which are moral in terms of the way they threaten our most cherished values, if indeed we cherish those values. Can science still play that role? So, in the spirit of not giving you 100% answer, I leave that question in your minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kwok. Professor Kwok started and kind of ended off with physics. So an element of physics, who does well in physics, do we enjoy physics? But next, we have something in a different physical context. One element of physics is sound waves, and the frequencies that resonate with us can be classified as music. We have a jam band from Hall 5 performing for you.
What would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me in and you kicking me out. Got my head spinning, no kidding, I can't pin you down. What's going on in that beautiful mind? I want your magical mystery ride. And I'm so dizzy, don't know what hit me, but I'll be alright. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. And I give you all of me. Will you give me all of you? Oh. How many times do I have to tell you? Even when you're crying, you're beautiful too. The world is beating you down. I'm around through every mood. You're my downfall, you're my muse, my worst distraction, my rhythm and blues. I can't stop singing, it's ringing in my head for you. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. And I give you all of me. Will you give me all of you? Oh, give me all of you. Oh, cards on the table, we're both showing hearts, risking it all, though it's hard. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. You give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. And I give you all of me. Will you give me all of you? Oh. I could stay awake just to hear you breathing, watch you smile while you are sleeping, while you're far away and dreaming. I could spend my life in this sweet surrender. I could stay lost in this moment forever, when every moment spent with you is a moment I treasure. I don't want to close my eyes, I don't want to fall asleep, 'cause I miss you, baby, and I don't want to miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do. I'd still miss you, baby, and I don't want to miss a thing. Lying close to you, feeling your heart beating, and I'm wondering what you're dreaming, wondering if it's me you're seeing. And then I kissed your eyes, and thank God we're together. And I just wanna stay with you in this moment forever, forever and ever. I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep, 'cause I missed you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do. I'd still miss you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing. And I don't wanna miss one smile, I don't wanna miss one kiss, and I just wanna be with you right here, baby, just like this. And I just wanna hold you close, I feel your heart so close to mine, and you'll stay here in this moment for all the rest of time. I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep, 'cause I missed you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream will never do. I'd still miss you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing. I don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep, 'cause I miss you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing.
all the way to you. With heart in my head, give you a question. Decide all that you're an old-fashioned man. Can I have your daughter for the rest of my life? Say yes, 'cause I need to know. Say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tough luck, my friend. The answer is no. Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know you're human too? Why you gotta be so rude? I'm gonna marry her anyway. Marry that girl. Marry her anyway. Marry that girl. No matter what you say, marry that girl. We'll be a family. Why you gotta be so rude? I hate to do this, you leave no choice. Can live without her. Love me or hate me, we will be boys. Standing at the altar. Oh, we will run away to another galaxy. You know she's in love with me. You go anywhere I go. Can I have your daughter for the rest of my life? Say yes, 'cause I need to know. Say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tough luck, my friend. The answer is no. Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know you're human too? Why you gotta be so rude? I'm gonna marry her anyway. Marry that girl. Marry her anyway. Marry that girl. And no matter what you say, marry that girl. We'll be a family. Why you gotta be so rude? Rude. Can I have your daughter for the rest of my life? Say yes, 'cause I need to know. Say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tough luck, my friend. But no means no. Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know you're human too? Why you gotta be so rude? I'm gonna marry her anyway. Marry that girl. Marry her anyway. Marry that girl. And no matter what you say, marry that girl. We'll be a family. Why you gotta be so rude? Thank you.
For this question and answer and discussion session will be moderated by Professor David Butler. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for them, please. Professor, I'll hand it over to you.
Hopefully it's on. Okay, so thank you again for very good, four interesting but depressing speeches. I say depressing because, first of all, Chris, I got one of your questions wrong. The antibiotics one I got wrong. Teru, I realized I would kill my research student for the abstract theory. Diane, my H index is nowhere near the one you showed on the board. And Kim Woon, I think I'm the only person who said dropping atomic bombs was a good idea. Very depressing. But I'll just give a quick summary of the four speakers first. So Chris talked about public needs to learn through mediated sources. So it was a nice theory in the 1980s, just what I would call almost like digital diarrhea. Just push out all the information you can and then see how the public takes it in. I like that model you put up, the Gartner model. And I'm just thinking now about additive manufacturing could be one of those, which is getting a lot of hype at the moment. Expectations are that we can change the world. Maybe that's going to go for the same kind of situation. So there's always constant science is coming out to match that kind of model. You mentioned four models of communication, and you said it's not enough to shovel more science into the public. And I liked your public risk paradigm, equal to the magnitude of probability plus outrage. I liked the bit about outrage. That was quite nice. Teru, whoa, my goodness. I learnt a new word today, and I can't even pronounce it. Epistemic goodness. I'm going to go and use that for the next few weeks. It's very, as we say in Singapore, it's very powerful. So that was quite interesting. We mentioned about Kant as well, talking about how philosophy hasn't really learned from how physics has developed into a pure science. Even 200 years later, we're still in that position. And your question about moral goodness or epistemic goodness, which one is more important? This is a bit like the question on the meaning of life. I think you're going to give us a lot of headaches over the weekend. Okay, so moving on to Dan's, just to summarize yours, publish or perish model. As someone who publishes, I learned a lot from your presentation. Impact factors, yes, it's an obsession, but I didn't know how to calculate it, so that's what you said at lunchtime discussion. Open access is getting exciting. It's interesting how the university pays the professor and pays the publisher at the moment, so I think we're being, well, in typical engineering terms, double screwed. And Kian Woon? Yes, a lot of questions like, can science be thought of and lived as a vocation? I mean, I was very surprised if there was a 1917, almost like a career talk. So it's almost 100 years old, and it's still very much, is very true at the moment. And at that time, Germany was the ultimate scientific power in the world, and German was the language of science. So I guess it was a very topical time. And 1917, of course, smack in the middle of the First World War. So I like the way can we also distinguish between science and scientism. That was quite good. So that's a quick summary. What we have is quite a lot of questions. I will start off with the first one, which is to Chris. It's from somebody called Chemo. Surname is Cummings. I don't know if you may know probably your wife, girlfriend, daughter, wife. Somebody with the same surname as you.
Somebody with the same surname, evidently.
So there's two Cummings in NTU. That's incredible. Okay. So the question is, to get public engagement and interest in science, do we need to have scientists to be rock stars? Okay, sure. To get public engagement and interest in science, don't we need to have scientists as rock stars?
So the question is about if we need those science rock stars, right? Some people say absolutely yes, we do. As I talked, one of those four models of public communication currently is that popularization and dissemination model. And we have a lot of folks who are trying to be, as they say, the next Carl Sagan. And that's been a search. There have been papers and talks titled, who will be the next Carl Sagan? Who will be the one that actually gets a broader reach to spread, the scientific understanding to a broader public. And this is a big issue. We are seeing, instead of science rock stars as well, more niche communities that are being built through digital media. So my take is that we don't necessarily need the science rock stars, but certainly it helps for this popularization model. Now, we also know that with this idea that we have rock stars who are out there, that people know who they are, they know they're the science people, we do see engagement with that. We, of course, have some new rock stars coming out, and we see, folks who are taking rise currently and gaining a bunch of press and popularity. And we don't fully know to what extent they actually reach the entire spectrum of people that should have input in science, or if they're preaching to just a larger choir, right? Are they just casting a wider net where more people who are already interested in science now know who they are? To kind of tie to Diane's discussion, we have an interesting time now where, she talked about the altmetrics and how these can stand to actually bolster people's reputation.